Wow. Well, tonight, new numbers on how many city employees have moved out of Milwaukee since residency rules changed more than 4 years ago.
A Milwaukee alderman calls it troubling for the city.
The I-Team's Courtney Garish is here. And Courtney, the biggest numbers are in public safety.
They are about 30% of police officers and 35% of firefighters live outside the city. Some of them are in higher ranking spots in those departments. The police union's take on the numbers, nothing about the bigger picture has changed. Police officers and firefighters, an integral part of Milwaukee during their shifts and after. But since the rule requiring them to live in the city changed in 2013, there's been a slow trickle out of Milwaukee. A total of 806 officers and firefighters are now living in other communities.
Always wanted to be with Milwaukee. I think it's one of the best in the nation.
This MPD officer is newer to the force. He lives outside Milwaukee city limits.
I'm content with where I'm at right now.
He agreed to talk about the issue if we didn't identify him. He's worried about possible backlash. This officer feels lifting the restriction is a good thing for officers.
To let officers go live somewhere where they don't always have to be around what they're policing all the time.
This officer also doesn't think where he lives affects his ability to do his job or know his district.
I think it makes me more motivated to try to learn it better, learn the ins and outs.
I think that's troubling.
Milwaukee Alderman Cavalier Johnson is concerned about the numbers. As of mid-November last year, almost 1,500 of all city employees are now living outside Milwaukee. That's about 1 out of every 4 people. Close to 900 of those employees have moved since the residency requirement was lifted 4.5 years ago.
Do you see it as a trend?
I do see it as a trend.
State lawmakers did away with strict residency laws in 2013. Even though Milwaukee appealed the decision, employees were free to move, and 85 did so that year. 2014 was the biggest exodus. 260 employees moved out of the city. Last year, from January to mid-November, 225 chose to live in different communities.
You should have some skin in the game here. You should live here.
Alderman Johnson feels the city is already losing out, especially with the number of police and fire employees settling in other communities. That number includes people in higher ranking positions.
I am under no illusion that we need to do better in certain respects. In order for our community and our city to get better, it takes all of us to stand up in order to make it so.
President of the Milwaukee Police Association, Mike Crivello, argues officers are already doing that during their shifts.
Everything is okay. Nothing bad has happened because people have moved out.
Crivello's take on the numbers is that 70% of officers still choose to live in Milwaukee,
while 100% of the officers have the freedom to make the choice.
Something this officer plans to do when he eventually buys a house.
It's a decent neighborhood, finished basement, a decent sized yard.
A decision he'll make based on what's best for his family.
So where are city employees moving? Franklin, New Berlin, and Oak Creek are the top 3 communities of choice.
Now, Courtney, even though officers can move out, there are some employees that still have some restrictions, aren't there?
Right. The current law requires police, fire, and some emergency personnel to live within 15 miles of the city. We wanted to see what you thought about that rule. We did a Twitter poll. I just checked it. 31% say yes, there should be a mileage restriction. 69% don't believe there should be one at all.
Interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney.